Welcome back to my deep dive into the TikTok ban. Before we go live on January 10th, we're all going to watch the oral arguments at the Supreme Court together. This seems like a good time to talk about Supreme Court procedure because I got this great question about why do they only have 2 hours to speak? That doesn't seem like enough time. Did you know that it's actually twice as much time as Supreme Court oral arguments usually have? In your typical case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, those arguments usually only last an hour. In this case, because I think that the court has decided this is of great public importance, and because there are multiple parties presenting at the Supreme Court, they have granted 2 hours. By agreement, the parties have decided that TikTok Inc. and ByteDance will have the first half hour, that the creators, the 9 creators that also filed suit, will have the next half hour, and then the government will have the final hour. Let's talk about what those oral arguments are going to look like, because I think most people have not watched appellate arguments in their lifetime. While these parties have half an hour or an hour to speak, and I'm sure that they have remarks prepared to fill the entire time, they're not going to get to say everything that they have prepared, because as soon as they say something that a justice has a question about, they're going to be interrupted, and one of those justices is going to ask a question. It's a little bit chaotic because the justices just like rapid fire questions at you, and the lawyer for these parties has to answer those questions off the top of their head. Because these arguments are going to be streamed in audio only, I'm going to do my best to tell you which justice it is talking, but we're not always going to know exactly who it is who's speaking. The reason that oral arguments in front of the United States Supreme Court are so brief is because the briefing, those papers that they've submitted ahead of time, tells those justices everything that they need to know. So when they get into the Supreme Court oral arguments, the entire purpose is to ask questions of the parties that the justices still have after reading those briefs. But sometimes there's another purpose. Sometimes the justices are asking a question because they are trying to persuade one of their colleagues, one of the other justices. Some of these justices are notoriously very active, what they call a hot bench, meaning that they ask a lot of questions. Some of those questions may seem very aggressive. Some of these justices rarely ask any questions. Clarence Thomas is famous for rarely opening his mouth while he sits on that bench. I can't wait to see y'all live on January 10th. The oral argument starts at 10 a.m. I'll go live probably about 10 minutes before that so that I can get all the technology straight and get everybody in the room.